Welcome to the Sister Street Show with Mary Nunley and Sharon Otagiro, interactive show and virtual playground where we explore topics around entrepreneurship, online and in-person events, and the games that can be played with all of it. We invite you on our journey of sisterhood discovery and trial and error in the adventures of online entrepreneurship.
Aloha and welcome back, everyone, to the Sister Street Show. It is your host, Sharon Otagiro, and my lovely co-host,
Mary Nunley. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. You may notice that Sharon and I are just cracking up because I'm sure none of you have ever experienced technical difficulties before when running a meeting. Well, we thought we were recording and we weren't. And then we just started laughing and now we are recording. We are live. We are coming at you. Drop a comment below or come visit us online somewhere and let us know about your biggest technical fail. Let's all laugh and enjoy these, technical hiccups together. So not the theme of our show, but we're all about community, and sometimes commiserating with others is like makes what we're experiencing not seem so bad.
Absolutely. And that's what Sister Street is about, is our foibles, our fantasies, and our friction getting to success, but getting to success. We love that alliteration. It's about doing it together so that we learn from each other and we support each other. So This ending of March already, guys, can you believe it? We are getting into the second quarter of 2022. When you watch this,
I was just like, how did that happen?
She had a visceral reaction. And we are talking about building our business and getting into scaling. So last episode, we talked about the planning that we have to do for our businesses. If we don't have a plan, we will not have success. This episode, we are delving into building that success and that scalability by getting into our pay, doubling our take-home pay, and building our boards, and why that's so important when we want to scale. There's a concept about having the end in mind, and there's a book that Mary wants to share because both of us have really loved this resource of Profit First and the concepts of it. So when we talk about getting into scaling and building our success by making sure that we are successful and by having the resources and the people around us that make us successful, this end in mind is really, really important. So Mary, would you share with us as we jump in, what is Profit First all about?
Sure. And this is just going to be a really quick recap. I highly encourage everyone who's watching to get a copy of Profit First. And keep in mind that the first time you read it, if you're anything like me, you're going to go, there's no way that this is going to work. The main premise of Profit First is that you have to take care of yourself, your bills, your business, your profit from the very beginning. And what so many of us do as entrepreneurs, especially starting out, is we take the scraps. And the problem with that is that you end up going out of business because you haven't budgeted and put money aside for those growing pains, those unexpected expenses, and the fact that you also need to make a living. And so when I first read the book, I'm like, there's no way this is going to work. What? 6 bank accounts? Come on, that's crazy. But as I've started applying those principles, I have a much better sense of like, we can make it through just about anything. And so it's really thinking about, what is your end goal? What is it going to take to get there? And not scrambling to go, oh, I'm going to take some money out of this account to pay this unexpected bill in this account. Instead, it's coming up with a plan that works. And so I have not done the book justice in a 60-second review, but definitely go check the book out, take a look at it, drop your comments, ask some questions. We would love to start a conversation with you about Profit First. And it's by Mike Michalowicz. And he's got several other books as well, but this is like the place to start, in my opinion. I wish I'd known about it when I first started as an entrepreneur.
Exactly. It was a great recap, Mary. And there is so much more. So you definitely want to get the book. There are book summaries as well that you can look at, but really the concepts of thinking about the end in mind and then breaking out your finances, That's what every business does, guys. It's not that you start opening up a restaurant or opening up a true business and say, well, when it makes money, then I'll pay myself. That's not how you hire employees. That's not how you should hire yourself as the CEO. And so you have to think about making sure that it's a viable business from the start. And even if it's not, the concepts, the thought process has to be there for you to honor your business, respect it, and treat it like it is a viable business from the beginning. So that also then dives into from what we've been tracking along is the scalable system, and levels 4 and 5 in scalable is the scalability from scalable.co, scalable company, is doubling your take-home pay and building your board. What does that mean? Well, doubling the take-home pay means that you've got to make sure that you're taken care of. A lot of times, once we start getting traction, remember, we've built our first few sales, we've started to upgrade our operating systems, we've got our communication on our plan in place. So now we're getting consistency in our business, but we don't feel like we're gaining traction because we never gave ourselves a raise. Well, this is the point where you've got the consistent revenues and now you're wondering, is it worth it? I'm not getting the benefit. This is where you say, well, make the benefit for yourself. So once you have that consistent volume, double your own take-home pay. But that doesn't mean that your company is going to take the hit for it, because what the expectation is when you double your take-home pay, you also should increase your profits or decrease your costs. This is where the volume starts to hit you and you're wondering, okay, can I shave some costs? And most likely there are areas where you've built those, you've bought those software systems, right? You've built those, you've built your sales team, you've done things that are there to increase your top line revenue, your overall income, that may not be profitable, or you found other ways that now at scale or at volume, you can start to cut your costs. So you should double your pay. And in that same 50,000, 100,000, 200,000, you will be able to find 2 to 3 things to increase profit and 2 to 3 things that can decrease costs. So Mary, you've experienced this or you've coached this in some of your clients. What are some examples of things that you could do to increase the profit from the volume that you're already bringing in or decrease your costs?
Sure, Sharon, great question. And as you were talking, I was thinking, back to my restaurant days too, as we're said several times, we're both in the hospitality industry. You've got your fixed cost and your variable cost. Your fixed costs are the things you have to pay all the time. So that's your salary. That might, if you have other employees, it's their salary. It might be rent. In my business, there are fixed costs that I have for software licenses that I can't do my business without that particular piece of software. And it's not like I can go out and find a different software. This is the software we have to use. But then variable costs are things like bringing in freelancers, advertising, marketing. Are there things that you can do that don't have a high dollar cost that give you just as much exposure as spending a lot of money on like print marketing? So that's one way to look at it. And then the other thing is to really look at it and say, okay, where am I bringing in the best revenue, the best clients? And I don't want to make this sound bad, but for the least amount of work. So are there systems that you can put in place? Are there templates that you can use that are still customized, but instead of having to create everything from scratch every single time, are there some systems you can create for, let's say, onboarding a new customer or new client that saves time in the process? And so that means you're spending more time acquiring new customers, creating new products, offering new services instead of reinventing the wheel all the time. So that would be my other suggestion.
Yep, I love it. Absolutely. That piece of you might have to fire your clients. So good, because guess what? There are times where once you've gotten enough clients, those people that spend most of you or your team's time that, they complain about the bills, they always try to find loopholes, and they just waste time. and they're not going to be the ones that you can upsell. They're not going to be the ones that are your best clients. So you got to look at that. And what you typically will find is your top 20% of clients are the ones that spend the most, that are the happiest and easiest. And so wouldn't it be so much more successful to focus on those and double them, double the amount of clients that are paying you the best amount of your top rates versus spending that double time on the ones that are making you less money, right?
And then
Yeah,
just
so
putting those systems in place to save time so that you can spend
absolutely.
more time on the new things really makes a difference. We talked a little bit about that last week with planning, and now
Yep.
you're seeing how it comes to life in other ways.
Yeah. I also got a great tip from a colleague who does digital marketing and Digitize My Coaching. Martin does this twice a year, where he also basically looks through his continuing costs. So this is a great practice, is sending out an email to your entire team or looking at your own finances if you're a solopreneur and looking at those subscriptions, those things that you signed up for a year ago that you haven't even used. For me, it's those PDFs, Adobe PDF. There's a level that I don't need because I've never used those extra benefits. Do you have more than one CRM? What are those annual or monthly costs that you can cut? That's a way to cut your expenses, because oftentimes you've signed up for things that had a great idea that you have not even touched for at least 6 months or a year. And those are the things that twice a year you should go through and cut the ones that are not necessary.
Yes, it's much like the saying with your wardrobe. If you turn the hangers around and if you haven't touched it in 6 months or a year, it's time to get rid of it. And that's what we're doing right now as well, is like looking at these softwares that we purchased, or we purchased for a one-time project, but then we haven't had a client that needed that software for another project. So it's like, okay, time to cut that subscription. We don't need that any longer. So great point, Sharon.
All right, excellent. So we've talked about doubling our take-home pay. How do we do that? We find 2 to 4 things that we can do to increase our profits, and we find 2 to 4 things that we can decrease our costs, and therefore we should have enough additional revenue that will cover the cost of our double. And why is that important? Because we as leaders need to model success. And if we are giving ourselves raises, it feeds into giving our team raises so that they stay with us, which the cost of acquisition of team members is so high. You've got to train them. You've got to recruit for them. So keeping your team happy and keeping your team qualified by not losing them is very, very important in this competitive market. Anything else, Mary, on doubling our pay or making sure that we lead by example and
so the one
have
other
that?
thing I would say in terms of doubling your pay and leading by example, at least here in the US, if you're watching, we also have to pay taxes. And so as you are thinking about doubling your pay or making changes to your financial situation, I highly encourage everyone to talk to their accountant or CPA to make sure that you're making the right decisions for your business, and to make sure that you're not going to have, let's say, an unexpected tax bill. Because if you're self-employed, you also have to remember that as you're doubling your pay, you're also having to pay more in self-employment taxes. So talk to your financial person to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success that way as well.
Absolutely. Very important. Great point. Thank you, Mary. Well, and we are just skimming the surface, guys. So there is so much more that we can talk about in terms of accelerating profit, increasing efficiency with your cost savings, and why you've got to double your take-home pay. But this is that level 4 where you're starting to shift into scalability. And if you don't feel the freedom to do that, guys, once you've gotten the revenues, that's a limiting belief. And that's also the things that happen when you're starting to grow into scale. Once we've gotten there and we've doubled our take-home pay, level 5 is to build your advisory board. And that is so important, guys, because as you grow, your business is limited by you. you are the single biggest factor that limits the scalability of your business. We only know what we know. We don't know what we don't know, right? The simple rhetorical pieces are so true because every single one of this, of us as leaders, as CEOs, as founders, as solopreneurs, as coaches, every single one of us is our own limitation in terms of what's possible. And that's natural because we are limited beings. So in order to grow, we need to build our group around us. And that's why we're Ohana. That's why we're Sisters on Sister Street Show, is that once we get to that level where we've tapped out all our own ideas and resources, we've got to build our board, our advisors around us that will help us to grow. Mary, you do this so well with your networking and your connections. Why is it important to have an advisory board as you grow?
Oh my gosh, there's so many reasons, but one of them is it's like I am an idea generator. And I'm always coming up with like this idea, that idea, that idea, but having an advisory board that can help you look through the pros and the cons, the viability of the idea. And sometimes, if you want to use the analogy of a fishing pole, reeling me in a little bit, because it's just like, that's a great idea, Mary. And how are you going to get it done? Oh, and you want to get it done in 2 weeks. Really? We'll have you. And so having that advisory board, people that you can bounce ideas off of to help you think things through, because the conversations that we have in our head are often like, oh, this is going to be a great idea. But when we talk to someone else, they're just like, that is a great idea. And have you thought about this? Or have you thought about this? Quick story. A friend of mine who does voiceover work had called me the other day and said, hey, I've got this idea I want to bounce past you. I'm like, sounds like a great idea. And have you thought about this? Because it was something that involved hourly employees in the workplace. And my one question was, you can't have an hourly employee in a corporate job listen to something that's required off the clock, because that is a violation of labor laws. And
Yep.
so I think your idea is great. And have you thought about this? But that's where that advisory board comes in, because that's not a subject that he had experience with. And so it was a way for just to say, this is not your world. I've lived in this world, and here's something you want to consider. And so the advisory board is really good for that.
Absolutely. And Mary hit on a couple of points. Your advisors should have different experience from you. That means that you could pull advisors from other industries. If you needed advice on sales, well, you might want to consider someone that's high in sales in a different industry, because they're going to have different insights into the same focus, which is sales. Another piece is having someone that has more experience than you in an area of your business. And so these are things that you want to consider when you're looking at building your advisory board. Mary, does an advisory board have to be paid, or should they be paid? Tell me about pay in terms of advisory board.
Great question. I think depending on your corporate structure, you may have to pay an advisory board. For somebody starting out with a small business, I do not pay my advisory board. These are more mentor type relationships, or we advise each other. So if you think of like a mastermind, in some ways that can also be your advisory board, where I've got expertise in this area, you've got expertise in this area, and we bounce ideas off of each other and help create that better service or product.
Exactly. You can pay them, and at a certain level, you should pay them, but you don't have to pay them. And so, it's like everything else. There are rules in the world, but rules are supposed to be there as a guideline, as a consistent expectation of what many people, not most, but many people do. As you build your advisory board, based on your situation, look at what you can do and what you need to do, and then find the people and advisors that will make the most difference for you. And it might be a mix. So we recommend that, yes, if you get to a certain level, you should pay them. And there are different ways to pay them. You can pay them with your time. As Mary said, in a mastermind, it is reciprocal value that you're offering them. And you can pay them in money, but it should be a value transfer. The other thing that you can think about is paying them with equity. I will give you 5% of my business if you can help me grow this business, right? And so you're paying them on future value, and that gives them the incentive to give you their time. And it's a business transaction
Right.
versus, okay, well, can you just give me can I pick your brain? Oftentimes advisors will really have an allergic reaction to that phrase, because that means I'm going to pick like a vulture from your brain and not give you anything back. Well, you are giving back your time, your value, and the commitment that the advice that they give you is going to contribute to the growth, and how can they benefit from that?
Right. And I think that's the key thing, Sharon. It should be reciprocal in some way. So figuring that out. And again, if you're a business that's making less than $1 million a year, your advisory board is probably welcome or willing to help for free with limited numbers of meetings. But once you're asking them to help you make decisions that are multi-million dollar decisions, for lack of a better term, there is this expectation that they will be compensated for their time and their expertise. So again, I would talk to somebody who is an expert in that area when you get to that point in your business to go, okay, what is the protocol? What are the rules? What are the ramifications of, paying, not paying, that type of thing?
Exactly. And the benefit, guys, of having an advisory board is that they have access to networks that you couldn't access. So when you're getting an advisor, you're looking at people that you want to be in a couple of years. You're looking at people that have the clients that you want to have in the next year. And so these are people that, if you resonate with them in the value system, which is very important, guys, because you've created a culture, you want to maintain that culture within your organization. And how you do that with your advisors is bringing people together that you aspire to, or you admire, or you respect, but also that have similar value systems, because otherwise they're going to take your company in a direction that you may not want if they don't have similar core values as you. So coming back to your why that we talked about earlier in the game of business, right? But then when you build your advisory board, you want to access their networks. And if you give them the reciprocal value, they will happily introduce you to people that you will serve, which makes them look good. And also that accesses for you a network that you may not have been able to tap into on your own. So those are the reasons to have an advisory board. Other groups that you also want is peer groups. So you want your advisory group, you also want your peer group, because as Mary said, oftentimes you're going to want to bounce ideas off of others. And there's certain questions that you want to bring to your advisory board because you need advice. And there's certain projects or brainstorming that you want to have with your peer group as well. So there's a couple different groups that you want. And then you want your support group, which is going to be your Ohana. This is not the same as your peer group because it's not as often business related, but these are the people that when you are in your down days, and no matter how big you get and how successful you are, you will have down days because it's about failing forward. So having that support group as well to say, I just need a pick me up. Can you just take me out for drinks? I just need a crying shoulder. Those are the things that you want as well. So you want 3 different groups that are going to support your business as you grow. And you need to have the boundaries and the distinctions between them, because I can't go crying to my business mentor or my business advisor because they are now in equity with me. They are now gaining business value. And so it sort of affects that confidence level that they have in us. If I'm saying, oh my God, I suck, I can't do anything.
Right.
So you need that support group, and then the peer group, and then the advisory group. Mary, what are your thoughts on that?
No, I think that's great. And there are different roles for different things. Like my support group are the people that I can go to and I'm like, I'm just having a bad day, or I really messed this up with a client. I'm so embarrassed. I don't want to take that necessarily to my advisory board unless I see it becoming a trend. And then it's a whole different issue. Then it might be, is it a system that's not right versus, like, oh, I just dropped the ball. Peer groups are great for idea bouncing around. And then the other thing I was going to talk about advisory board just very briefly, and we've mentioned this on other episodes. If you're brand new and you don't know where to get advice or an advisory board, the Small Business Association or a local business incubator that are often run by community colleges or colleges in your area is a great place to get started when you don't know where to start. And so when you're
Great
first
idea.
in business, you're just like, well, who do I even have as an advisory board? Well, that's what those organizations are there for, is to help you out.
Yeah. Well, and Mary, that's a great point too, because some of you are thinking, well, this is not relevant to me. This episode doesn't help me. And I would say to you that knowing what the path ahead may look like is so important when you're starting, because then you're going to subconsciously and consciously be seeking those people as you grow. Who would be in my advisory board?
Mhm.
Well, those are the people that you want to start reading their content. You want to start following them. These are people where, okay, let's look at someone that is successful, because the brain, from an NLP or neuro linguistic programming, a subconscious programming perspective, is going to start seeking people that are successful, so that now they're in your circle of awareness. They're going to help you grow. They're going to give you ideas. They're going to show you trends that you have no idea are going to impact your business now.
Yeah, no, and it's, there are things that 4.5 years into business, I wish I had thought about when we first started out, versus just like, how am I going to pay the bills? What am I going to do? And as I learned and grow, it's like, oh, this would have been so helpful if I had been able to think about it a few years ago. So great
Yeah.
point, Sharon.
So as we're closing up this episode, Mary, who are some of the influencers that you follow that you think have impacted you, and why?
Ooh, great question. So I'd say some of the folks that I follow that have impacted me, Carl Kapp, who is one of the wizards of gamification and game-based learning. Mohsen Memon from Gameatar, he's the founder of Gameatar, and he's got Evive, the leadership game. Um, who else? Oh, there's so many. Kara North, Tim Slade. I mean, there's a lot within the learning and development field that I follow that are just phenomenal people. And then also, and here, this is a little segue, if, with your permission, I also want to make a slight plug for somebody that I have followed, Liam Austin, who is an entrepreneur, and he is offering a checklist on how to do a virtual workshop, which really ties into what Sharon and I do. But he has such high energy, and his story just like has really made a difference to me when I've chatted with him, going, oh, so if he can do that, I can do that. So we'll put a link in the show notes and also in the YouTube if you want to take a look at some of his material. All of the others, you can find them on Amazon because they've all written books, or you can find them on LinkedIn. So those are the ones that have really impacted me. What about you? I know we've talked about several of your mentors and impactful folks as we talked about scalable business and some of your experiences, but who are 2 or 3 that really stand out for you?
Yeah. And before I do that, Mary, I just want to gain everyone's permission, guys. In the Sister Street Show, we will periodically drop promotions, or we will endorse people that we believe in. But the people that we will share are folks that we've either followed, that we admire, or that we've worked with. So we're not going to take money just to promote someone that we have no idea who they are. So we hope that you give us permission to promote those, because
Yes.
that really helped us, is getting advice from people that we trusted on people that they trusted. So hope you guys are okay with that. But yeah, I've seen a couple of Liam's stuff, and he really is a giver first. And that is one of our beliefs, is givers gain. And this is an
Mhm.
Ivan Meisner quote, who is another person that, if you believe in relationship marketing, you should follow, because he truly is a giver at a very, very high level. But we will drop periodic, and we hope that you are okay with that recommendations. So people that I follow, I love Roland Frazier, who now has exposed me to digital marketing world with Ryan Dice and Richard Linner. But Roland Frazier is just a giver first, high integrity person, and just one of the smartest people that is in every room that he's in, because he thinks about things at a fundamentally different level in terms of scaling your business and considering the economic values and relationships of things. And he does it in such a different way. So I love Roland Frazier from a giver's first and just all around laid back guy. Rob Goyette is someone else that I just truly admire. He thinks about things from a marketing perspective, but he brings them down to such a simple level. And I also really, really admire Virginia Muskis, who you've heard us talk about a lot. And she is so brilliant at the ways that she considers building your referral marketing system. She's a brilliant marketing person, and she's a brilliant referral alchemist. And so what she does in the systems and the ways that she does them is so nuanced and so brilliant. So those are three that I really, really admire.
I love it. Well, we've just about come to the end of this week's show.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
Sharon, why don't you take us out?
All right. So the message, the moral of this week is you should consider scaling when you first start your business and at every level of your business. How can I make sure that this thing is going to be successful? And how we do that, guys, is we got to give from our saucer, meaning we've got to fill our cup first. So think about what you need to make. And as you grow, think about giving yourself that raise and doing so ethically and with integrity by getting your business more successful. So I'm going to give myself a raise. Okay, great. How can I make my business more successful so that the raise pays for itself? And then as I grow, who are the people? Who are the advisors, the colleagues, and the support people that I should be around because they bring out the best in me and in my business? So those are the two lessons for this week, guys. Thank you so much. And we'll see you again shortly. Always look in the chat for your resources, that promotion checklist from Liam, as well as many other goodies, and check out our website at sisterstreet.show.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe for future videos.